everybody, it's Leslie from WeLoveJones.com, and I'm coming to you today with a video reviewing my most recommended mental health resources for families. If you haven't seen any of my other videos, my background is in mental health. That's what I majored in. I majored in psychology, and when I worked, that is the field I worked in. I used to be a therapist, and before that I used to work with individuals who are homeless, and specifically at one point actually in a women's shelter. Excuse me. And I've really been praying about what I have to offer on YouTube and kind of where my expertise lies and how that could be a blessing to a family here on YouTube, this community that I've just grown to love and rely on for just surviving life as a stay-at-home mother these days. And so I prayed about it, and this is one of the ideas that came to me. So I'm going to go through, let me look at my notes real quick, my top 5 most recommended resources for family mental health resources. My number 1 recommended resource is a publishing company called Magination Press. So it's like the word imagination, but without the I. And it's a publishing company that is born out of the American Psychological Association, and the researchers that are affiliated with APA, American Psychological, not Psychiatric Association, because they both use the same acronym. And if you go to the American Psychological Association, I will have a link to their Magination Press page. But they're a book publishing company that publishes children's books for ages 4 through 18. And all of the books are written by mental health professionals or those who work closely with children. So that could be therapists, social workers, and teachers who work with, certain populations. And the books can cover a wide range of topics from bedwetting to ADHD to serious problems that kids face, like if your family happens to be going through divorce or a death or a serious injury or chronic illness, or is struggling with autism, or you name it. This company publishes books for children that are age appropriate, that are written by therapists. I can't think of something more valuable than a book written by a therapist to help me deal with serious things that could come up in any family. And like I said, they publish books for kids 4 to 18. And so it doesn't matter what age range your children are in, there's probably something there for you that could be immensely helpful. So they don't just cover mental health, they also cover some developmental issues. Many of the books are actually written by famous researchers or researchers that specifically studied that thing, like autism. And so they have a catalog. I highly recommend you request a catalog and flip through the resources on there, because the books that they have to offer are just immensely useful. Occasionally when I have wanted a book and I didn't want to purchase it, I can usually find it used on eBay or on Amazon, or I can just ask my library to either purchase it or borrow it from another library. And I've never had a hard time getting the book that way. But I definitely encourage you to support them. And if you, there's been times where I have purchased a book and I bless somebody else with it that I know is struggling with something similar. So so you have options depending on your budget there. My next resource is also from the American Psychological Association, Magination Press folk. They actually have created a website, and it's KidPsych.org. And I'll just read you a brief description. Children can play games and it's kind of like a brain development game, kind of like, what is that? Like Luminosity for children, to kind of help mental sharpness. They're just great. It's free brain games on the computer, and it's separated out by age group. I think the oldest games are for like up to age 9, and the youngest are like preschool games. But they're quite difficult actually. So it's a great free website that your children can play on, and you know that they're getting quality, well-researched games that they can play on. They're mostly cognitive thinking skills and developmental games, so you're not going to find games on there that are, for if you're going through grief or loss, or if you're, there's some emotion regulation games, but for the most part, it's really cognitive thinking skills that they're using this website for. So yeah, I highly recommend that website. My son is kind of still too young for it, but I definitely plan to include this in curriculum since I happen to homeschool. So this will probably be a website I use for kind of Friday fun time for my son. My next resource is a government website. I live in the United States, so if you're watching this video and you're outside of the United States, there's probably similar resources in your country's psychological association website can give you some leads. So the resources I'm sharing today are based out of the United States. So the United States, under the Federal Department of Health and Human Services, has an entity called the Substance Abuse Mental Health Services Administration, and the acronym for that is SAMHSA. I'll say it again. It's the Substance Abuse Mental Health Services Administration. And they do a lot of things, from being the main grantors that fund some substance abuse programs and mental health programs around the country. But they also have great resources on their website. If you need resources for anger management for somebody in your household, or somebody or a relative that is in close proximity to your children, they have great resources for suicide prevention and recognizing the signs of suicide, and great resources for disaster relief, and great resources if you happen to be a victim of a hate crime, or not just disaster relief, but if you happen to be near a kind of a traumatic event like a mass shooting, or those are difficult issues to deal with, and especially to explain to children, or even just to cope with yourself. So SAMHSA does a decent job of kind of putting resources out there and connecting people to who they need to speak to in the disaster, or the disaster relief teams that are sent out. They want to make sure that you have access to the people who have been sent into that area to help. So I definitely encourage you to peruse the samhsa.gov website. A lot of their stuff can be sent to you for free. And so yeah, they have great resources. So check them out. My next resource is Psychology Today. It's a magazine, but their website is actually pretty robust. Sometimes when I'm watching kind of secular news or something, they'll quote an article in a non-psychology focused paper or journal or whatever. And sometimes I kind of go, oh, I wish they wouldn't have reported on this, because you have to be a good consumer of psychological research to understand it. Psychology Today does a decent job. It's the best resource I've been able to find to kind of share with people who did not study psychology. The reason I'm recommending this is because I want to encourage you to stay away from pop psychology and actually read articles written by people who do the research. Or, the articles are often curated by people who understand, how to write an article in a way that presents the research in its proper context, and for whom it is applicable and for whom it's not applicable. My only beef with them is that they sometimes will write an article on research and present something on research that is older than 10 years. The problem with research that is older than 10 years, so if they're writing an article on a research from the 60s, well, the landscape is the political and the socioeconomic and the technological landscape is very different, and education has changed since the 60s. And so while, of course, you don't want to throw away all older research as not applicable, you want to put older research in today's context. And so, children didn't have access to the internet and all these different things back then that affect the socioeconomic climate that children experience in school or even at home or in day-to-day lives. And so that's my only caution, but it's a great resource if you just want to know more information on a specific topic. The articles are written in such a way that a lay person that is not familiar with psychology can understand and have a comprehensive look at a particular topic, and it'll often point you to other areas for further reading. And my last resource is something called Mental Health First Aid. You can take a course in mental health first aid. It's put on by the National Council on Behavioral Health, and you can either encourage a community group that you have. So if you belong to a church or a large enough club that you think would benefit from receiving such training, because you come in contact with certain at-risk populations, or you're just a concerned parent and want to be knowledgeable on basic things that have to do with mental health first aid. And I recommend that anybody that has the time to take this a mental health first aid course, take it. They have a mental health first aid class for adults and a mental health first aid class for youth, but the youth class isn't for children younger than 12. So you're really they're really zeroing in on that preteen to teenage young adult phase of life. So they don't have a mental health first aid class for little kids, but it's an absolute great resource for people who just want some practical mental health basics, and it'll teach you just kind of how to recognize signs of just your most common mental health issues, and what to do if you come across a relative or a friend that is dealing with substance abuse issues or problems. And it's a great resource for knowing how to appropriately address those things. And I will link either in the video or down below the links to all of these resources. If there is no mental health first aid class near you, you can request that your club or your homeschool co-op or your church send somebody to get the training, so that your church can now be a hub and can start regularly offering your community mental health first aid classes. Sometimes schools will offer this. You can recommend, if you happen to live somewhere where there are no mental health first aid classes, that an entity in your community start offering them. I know of a community where the community got together and they got the police department to offer this class to anybody in the community. The more informed the community at large is on these heavy topics, the healthier I think a community can be, the stronger a community can be, because mental health issues are often sometimes overlooked. And I think having great, excellent mental health is important for developing strong communities. And so, again, I strongly encourage you to seek them out. And if you've never heard of it, consider taking a course or being the sponsor site for offering these courses to the general public in your area. So that's it. Those are my top 5 mental health resources for families. I hope you found this helpful, and if you would like more information on any of these resources, or have questions, please leave them below, because somebody else watching this video probably has the same question, and so it would be nice to have kind of a repository for those questions and answers down below this video. If you think I left something out that is of equal of importance, please let me know and I will add it below. And I hope you found this helpful. Thanks for stopping by We Love Jones YouTube channel, and I hope to hear from you guys soon. Have a great day. Bye.